Hi, my name is Gail Emma Scott, and I am going to give a reading from my first novel, Double Lives. And I wrote this book in the 1980s, 90s when I was having kids and staying at home. And I didn't have a lot of confidence back then to get it published. I didn't know what steps to take. So here I am, all these years later, um, and I'm about to read it for you. I just wanted to get the story out because I really care about it. And the story is about Willy Briggs. It is set in Texas, mostly in Austin, but the first scene is in a little town not far from Austin called Tahoka. Willy is a man of modest means but huge ambition, and he also is very pure of heart. He um, really feels he believes in what he's doing and in spreading the word. And his daughters are Mandy, the eldest, Dawn, the middle one, and then Jessie is the youngest. So this is their story as well. So I'm going to read all 34 chapters and just upload them so that people can enjoy the story for free. I just want to get it and share it. Okay, so chapter 1, A Call to Hope, August 1972. The town of Tahoka, Texas lay under a thin blanket of dust. Sunlight struggled through a layer of haze. An old beer hall, abandoned for years and stripped of most signs, stood tall. Its walls were decorated with tattered posters and fading advertisements from the 1950s. Inside, the place was packed with people, farmers, ranchers, and a smattering of the town's working class men and women, eager to escape their daily burdens and listen to a strong voice promising something better. In the middle of the room, on a makeshift stage made of sheets of plywood placed on wooden crates, Willy Briggs was preaching the gospel. Dressed in a pristine white suit that glowed in the dim hall, Willy abruptly stopped speaking and raised a hand to quiet the murmuring crowd. The hall fell silent, a hush blanketing the room. Folks, he began, his gaze sweeping across the faces before him. I know what it's like to work the land, to put your blood, sweat, and tears into the soil, only to find out at the end of the harvest that there's hardly anything left for you and yours. He paused, watching as heads nodded in agreement, his words resonating with the struggles in their lives. I know the feeling of watching your hard work slip through your fingers while the big men in Austin or Washington tell you to just work harder. A grumble rippled through the crowd, and someone muttered, "Ain't that the truth?" Willy caught the comment and pointed in the general direction, a faint smile spreading across his face. "That's right," he shouted, his voice thick with passion. "I'm here to tell you, friends, that self-reliance is your birthright. Justice is something we have to fight for, and I'm not afraid to stand up and say it. Are you?" "No," came the shouted response, voices rising in unison. A slender, weather-worn woman in the front row held her disabled son close, wiping a tear from her cheek. Willy saw her and softened, his voice lowering to a powerful whisper. "I lost my own son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "My sweet boy, taken too young. I carry that pain every day. It's why I'm here tonight, because I can't stand by and watch good folks like you suffer without hope." The woman nodded, her face wet, and Willy continued, letting silence settle over his words for a moment. "Now it's coming, it's time to change things," Willy's voice boomed, filling the cracks in the walls with its intensity. "Not by begging for scraps, but by taking what is ours, by banding together and making a stand. Jessie tugged the handle of the heavy wooden door. She was strong for 11, but her skinny arms struggled to pull it open wide enough to slip inside. As the door creaked closed behind her, she saw that her father was still preaching. She hoped she could slip into the empty chair beside her mother and her two older sisters without being noticed. She didn't want to get in trouble for being late for church again. As she made her way to the seat, ducking low, she cast glances at her father up on stage. Her heart beat faster. To Jessie, Willie seemed larger than life, more like a storybook hero than the man she knew at home. There was something unsettling about seeing him up there on stage that made her skin prickle. A curious and introspective girl, Jessie admired her father deeply, but also wrestled with a quiet fear of his commanding presence. Her sensitivity and vivid imagination make her see him as both a hero and an enigma. Finally, she slipped into the chair beside her mother and sisters, Dawn and Mandy, who greeted her with silent smiles. Practical and empathetic, 14-year-old Dawn sat quietly, gazing up at their father with admiration, absorbing every word. Beside her, 17-year-old Mandy sat with her arms crossed, exuding confidence and independence. Occasionally, she glanced protectively at Jessie, just to make sure her youngest sister was okay. Jessie clutched her hands nervously, but Dawn's quiet strength and Mandy's fierce presence steadied her. Her sisters were her anchors in the storm of emotions Willie's commanding presence stirred within her. "Jessie girl!" Willie's voice rang out, startling her. She looked up, cheeks flushed, as his eyes met hers across the sea of faces. He extended a hand, beckoning her forward with a wide smile. "Come on, don't be shy now. I want everyone to meet my little girl." "Go on," her mother whispered gently, encouraging her to step forward. The crowd parted for her, faces turning to see the preacher's youngest daughter. Jessie swallowed hard, wishing she could disappear. But she also felt an odd thrill as she walked forward and stepped onto the makeshift stage next to her father. She looked up at him, hoping for a smile, some sign of reassurance. But Willie's expression was all passion, his gaze burning with a fervor she didn't entirely understand. Willie placed his large hand firmly on her thin shoulder and squeezed. "This here is Jessie, my own flesh and blood," he said, his voice thick with pride. "She and her two big sisters are the reason I do what I do. Ain't that right, darling?" Jessie nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, sir." Willie chuckled, looking back at the crowd. "This girl, right here, she's got the heart of a lion. She's a Briggs through and through, and don't you forget it, Jessie." He leaned down and whispered in her ear, his voice a low, intense murmur. "Don't let these folks see you're scared. You stand tall. Be proud, girl." Jessie swallowed hard and forced herself to straighten. The crowd was watching, smiling, nodding approvingly. They saw a brave little girl standing beside her father. But inside, Jessie felt small, like a tiny bird perched on the edge of something vast and dangerous. She looked out at the faces, wondering if they saw what she did. What did they see? Did they see the tightness in his grip? The way his eyes sparkled with something almost angry? She wasn't sure. She wanted to make him proud, wanted to feel as strong as he always told her she was. But sometimes, when he looked at her like that, she felt she was holding back a storm, one that she didn't quite understand and wasn't sure she wanted to be part of. A flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Why does he have to be so big, so loud all the time? As if sensing her hesitation, Willie pulled her closer. "You see, folks," he continued, addressing the crowd with a gleam in his eye, "family is the backbone of this land. Without family, we're lost. And I'll be damned if I let anyone or anything tear apart what I hold dear. His voice softened, almost to a whisper, but with an edge Jessie couldn't ignore. Ain't that right, Jessie? Yes, yes, sir, she replied again, a little louder this time, trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. She forced a smile, hoping it looked real. Maybe if I pretend long enough, I'll feel it too, she thought, as her father returned to addressing the crowd, his hand gripping her shoulder like a vice. The dusty Texas road stretched on endlessly as a couple in their 30s, Derrick and Carla Lewis, drove into the parking lot of the old beer hall and rolled to a stop. Derrick sighed, scowling at the map. They'd been driving for hours, and the attendant at their most recent gas station stop had promised that they were close, but close felt meaningless out here. Are we lost again? Carla asked, her tone light but laced with a touch of irritation. She had been patient during the long drive, but now Derrick's inability to navigate was getting her on her last nerve. Derrick smirked, his fingers tapping the steering wheel. Not lost, exactly, just delayed, he said, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the unfamiliar landscape. But Carla wasn't listening. She was focused on the voice she heard inside the beer hall, rising and falling in passionate waves. Come on, let's take a look, she said. Derrick and Carla slipped inside quietly. Derrick, looking unimpressed, leaned toward his wife and muttered, just another loudmouth preacher. But Carla's eyes sparkled, captivated by Willy's energy. There's something different about him, Derrick, she whispered in awe, her gaze never leaving Willy as he strode back and forth, preaching fervently. People need someone like this. He could be exactly what you're looking for. Willy's voice thundered once more, pulling their attention back to him. I believe in you. In every one of you, he said, his hands outstretched as though he could hold the entire crowd in his grasp. Together, we can fight for a future worth living. Are you with me? Yes, the crowd roared, their voices like a wave crashing over the dusty hall, filling every corner with a sense of hope that had been missing for far too long. They watched the man dressed in white standing on a makeshift stage, his hands raised in an almost theatrical gesture. Even from a distance, his presence was magnetic. Who is that? Carla asked, leaning forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. Derrick shrugged. Probably some local preacher running his mouth. Let's ask for directions and get out of here. Carla shook her head. No, look at him, she said, her voice barely a whisper, almost as if she were speaking to herself. He's different. He's got something. That confidence, the way he moves. She trailed off, mesmerized, a faint smile on her lips. I wonder if he knows how powerful that is. Derrick rolled his eyes. Here we go again, he thought, suppressing a smirk. Carla had a knack for getting carried away with diamonds in the rough, always imagining potential where he saw only rough edges. An experienced television producer, Derrick watched Willy critically. The man was raw, loud, and almost too intense for the polished television personas Derrick groomed and trained. But he had to admit, Willy did have a strong presence. Every word Willy spoke rippled through the crowd, carrying them on a wave of emotion that Derrick could see on their faces. Beside him, Carla was leaning forward, hanging on Willy's every word. Derrick nudged her gently, leaning in close. You're really taken with this guy, aren't you? He's magnetic, she whispered, her voice breathless. Derrick, can't you see it? He could be, I don't know, bigger. He's got a message that could reach beyond this town. Imagine that kind of passion on television. The audience would love it. Derrick raised an eyebrow and turned his gaze back to Willy. Maybe she's on to something, he mused, though he wasn't entirely sold. Willy was rough, unpolished, and intense, a combination that could either captivate or alienate an audience. But there was a fire in the man, a fervor that Derrick had to admit was rare. If I could just harness his energy, mold it into something people can relate to, he thought, an idea sparking. This isn't about religion, it's about self reliance and resilience, things everyone can latch onto. People want a voice that speaks to their frustrations and tells them they can pull themselves up if they just try hard enough. Maybe that's what this guy's got. And if he doesn't, well, I'll mold him into what people need. Derrick leaned over, placing a hand on Carla's shoulder. Okay, I get it now. You might be right. Let's meet the guy. See if we can refine him a bit. Give him a platform to reach a wider audience. The crowd was growing emotional, and shouts of Amen and Pastor Briggs filled the cavernous room. As they walked toward the stage, Carla watched Willy with a half smile. She could already picture him on set, his voice booming through TVs across Texas, maybe even the nation. She imagined the crowds he'd draw, people hanging on to his every word just as they were now. As they reached the edge of the crowd, she whispered to herself, a mixture of wonder and ambition in her tone. This could be something. He could be something bigger than this town, bigger than even he realizes.